I found out I wasn't going to learn how to read at 6. That is young. Did you get bad news about the future? 6? That's like pulling a kid aside and being like, hey, there's a good chance you're going to be a degenerate gambler. He's like, what are the odds?
Phil's fascinating life not only feeds his stand-up, but it also fills the pages of his new memoir, Spellbound, My Life as a Dyslexic Wordsmith. I am so happy to say Phil Hanley joins me now. Phil, welcome to Q.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm happy to have you and welcome back to Ontario.
Yeah, it's great.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
So we're going to spend some time with your life story, but I wanted to start off with this moment that you write about in the book. It's when you first get to know comedian Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
You write that she couldn't figure out why you were in comedy.
Yeah.
You seemed too normal.
Yeah.
And you told her you were dyslexic, and then she understood. So tell me about that exchange and what you were really saying to each other.
Well, when you meet stand-ups, comedy comes often from a dark place, and stand-ups often, and I talk about it in the book, but like there's something has to happen at some point where you decide like I'm going to be, outgoing and funny is going to be what I lead with. So I guess when we first got to know each other at the Comedy Cellar, Amy, I just seemed like, fairly normal, well-adjusted on the surface, I guess, maybe. And then she either saw a set list of mine or saw my writing or maybe heard a bit about being dyslexic. But when she found out that I was severely dyslexic, yeah, she's like, oh, okay, that was your thing. Because people often come from, something happens. Like if, not to tell his story, but Richard Pryor, who's considered like the greatest comedian of all time, if you look at his childhood, you're like, whoa, like, a lot occurred that should not have occurred.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of the case because, there's got to be something, I think, that gives you that drive to be funny. And it's something that you start. I mean, I started as long as I can remember, like, school would be so brutal. And then recess would be like, walking out on Letterman's, to do my stand-up. I would that's how I would survive.
That was your earliest crowd work, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about that origin story a bit more because you brought up school, and when you're a kid, you realize you can't read. Well, I want to play one of your jokes about an early teacher.
She'd make the whole class read, and then it would be my turn, and I'd be like, I can't read. It's the same situation as yesterday. And she would say, sound it out. Even as a kid, I'm like, yeah, that's just reading. It is so insensitive to tell a dyslexic child to sound it out. It'd be like if someone pulled you aside and was like, hey, I can't eat this, I'm deathly allergic to peanuts, and you're like, chew slowly.
That's an excerpt from your 2022 comedy special, Ooh La La. I mean, it's funny, but it's really deep.
Yeah.
And it's hurtful.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
What would you say to that teacher now?
I mean, I don't think I could say it on CBC, but no, I mean, I would just like to think that those teachers don't exist anymore, but I'm sure they do. I wish they didn't. But they're just, no kid is just lazy. And they wouldn't investigate it at all. I would not read, and they thought it was like, I was just doing it to, I don't know. But it's really painful not to be able to read. The same way any type of like disability, no one does it on purpose, and to just assume that it's quite cruel.
What did it do to your self-esteem?
Well, I got lucky. And then like, this is my life's mission is to, if there's a kid that's neurodiverse or particularly dyslexic, it's if you're a parent, if you can just maintain their self-esteem. Sorry, I get so emotional.
Yeah, take your time.
That's what my parents did.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, if you go through school with neurodiverse, with dyslexia, you actually develop all the qualities that you want a kid to have. You're tenacious. You don't give up because you have no choice. And you overcome something. Like I say that, I'll talk to a parent after a show. Parents with dyslexic kids will come to my shows. And I'm like, yeah, your kid will be 9 with the grit of someone that's been through 2 divorces. Like, they're tough. You know what I mean? They really are. So It's just maintaining their self-esteem, and my parents were able to do that.
Yeah. And it must have helped when you had a name for it too.
It did, but it took so long for them to give me a name for it. And I also have OCD, and that's another thing that when you get a name for it, you're like, oh, thank goodness. I really thought I was just completely unraveling. And then it's something that people have and you can deal with it. And I cope with it very well now. But if it wasn't identified, I wouldn't have. And that's another thing that breaks my heart. Some parents, and I saw this firsthand, and my mom would see this because she would, be going to special ed teacher conferences and stuff. And some parents would just deny that their kid has dyslexia. And they'd be like, no, he's just this, she's just a little bit this. And you're not helping your child at all. If you identify it, and there's ways you can work around it, and then there's also ways you can own it. And that's what I try to do.
Yeah. And being visible about it, right? So that other people know that you are a successful person with dyslexia. There's somebody who did there's somebody who did that for you, and I want to play a clip of that now.
I'm dyslexic in the extreme, and I'm not going to read music or I can write about as fast as I can read. I have to commit all this to memory, and then decide what I'm going to do about this section, that section, whatever. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Who's that?
Bob Weir.
Bob Weir for the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, rhythm guitar player for the Grateful Dead. Yeah, he's, I've never met him. I've met, the Grateful Dead have a lyric, I've shake the hand that shook the hand. So I've met people in and around the Dead. I've never met him, but yeah, he's, you've been an idol forever.
What did learning about him do for you?
Well, when you're dyslexic, they tell you, as you can see, it makes me very emotional.
Of course.
And it, it's not that if we were talking about anything else, we were talking about hockey right now, I wouldn't be getting this emotional. But it's something that I didn't realize how it affected me and how it affects everyone. And then you kind of finish school and you kind of just bury it. And then opening the book and talking to people like yourself and having thoughtful conversations about dyslexia, it comes up and you can't do anything. Like it's either just not talk or whatever. So that's, when people are like, oh, he just spells, the word can backwards. It's like, no, it's a deeper thing and it affects a lot more things.
Yeah.
But learning Bob Weir, for me, and, not everyone is a deadhead, which is a shame. But for me, it was like they tell you dyslexic just kind of flippantly. They're like, oh, Tom Cruise is dyslexic. And that did nothing for me.
Right.
That was like, oh, good. And okay. But when I found out Bob Weir was, because I idolized him and I loved his music, and he's so dyslexic. If you're a musician, you watch him play, it's like such a unique approach. And he writes songs in like 17, 18 time signature and just wild. And like all dyslexics, he works harder. They think he's performed more shows than anyone who's ever been alive. He toured with the Dead for 30 years, and now he continues to tour. He'll have one band, and then they'll finish, and then like a week later, he'll be on the road with someone else. So, and I think that's also part of dyslexia, because you learn everything is harder. Mm-hmm. Like for me to come here today, I got a text message with your producer's phone number in it, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a pen and a piece of paper. How do I get this from my phone back into my phone to text her? And you're faced with that all day, every day. Just so you become this creative problem-solving person, and that's something that all dyslexics have.
Yeah, you unlock a whole other part of your brain. That's very clear in the book, that the unbelievable creativity that you have found, and also, as you said, you brought up the word tenacity before, the tenacity that you have to say, all right, well, I'm going anyway.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
like,
you really have to. And something that I always want to say is the two things is that for parents of dyslexic kids to maintain their self-esteem, find something that they are good at, and not like, when they come home from school, that's the equivalent to them working like a 24-hour shift in the emergency room. They're exhausted. I'm not saying like force them into classical piano, but find something they're legitimately good at and give them legitimate compliments.
Yeah.
And there are going to be tons of things they're good at. Like if their kids are Lego and creativity and storytelling and all this stuff, and give them sincere compliments and encourage them. And that's what my parents did. They recognized that outside of school, I was outgoing and funny, and they celebrated that.
Yeah. It's so honest, and it's really courageous to have written this book and to be so open and so open-hearted and so giving about your story.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about teenage Phil living in Oshawa, listening to the Grateful Dead?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We might have to take parts of it out. But yeah, I was sad. I was very social. I had the best group of friends that I'm still friends with, that I had dinner with last night, and then I'll have dinner with tonight. But yeah, it was rough because it's so, so I found out something was wrong first day in grade 1. And then you start doing the math and you're like, I got to do this for 12 years, 13 years, you know. So as a teenager, I really lived for socializing and, you know, the great Canadian tradition of like bush parties and, you know, getting intoxicated in the woods. And I look back now and I have friends comment, they're like, I don't know where you got the courage. I just felt confident as who I was, as a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hear stories and remember times where you'd be like, I'd be in 9th grade at a 12th grade party and turning down the music to I guess, do a bit, you know, basically do what I do in stand-up. That
takes so much nerve.
I felt like the thing to do. And it, you know, it worked for me. So, yeah, it's so funny because I went through it and I didn't realize I was basically doing stand-up then, and I had no idea. I didn't know it was a thing, really. I wasn't even like a really like huge stand-up fan.
Yeah.
I guess I was just like, you know, you would call it like a smart aleck.
Smart aleck?
Yeah.
I want to play another clip from your comedy special that gets at another part of your career path. Here we go.
There was a fashion trend. It was a long time ago. It was called heroin chic. And I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. They're like, we want guys that look like they do drugs. And I'm like, look like you do drugs. I'm going to do you one better.
So that's a joke from your Ooh La La special. But in real life, you did become a model for a while.
After high school, for 4 years.
Your ticket out of Oshawa.
Yeah, I had... So Shalom Harlow grew up in Oshawa. Everyone who follows fashion knows that.
Famous model, yeah.
Yes, and she left school very young, and we were very close. And she moved to New York, and then all my friends went to university, and I was in Oshawa, and I didn't know what I was going to do at all. And she's like, you know, you can't stay there. Come. She saw some potential and said, come to New York. Like, well, why don't you model? And at the time, I by no means, no one, as I always say, like, if you ask my teachers, who's the last person in the world that's going to write a book? For sure, they would say me. For sure. And it was the same with modeling. Like, I didn't look like a model whatsoever. But at the time, there was the heroin chic thing, and I was very skinny, like very, very skinny, and I had long hair. And yeah, we did some test shoots here in Toronto, and then I ended up living in Europe for, like 4 years and doing that in search of what I wanted to do. I was uncomfortable modeling.
Yeah. And
it was a great experience. And I did, so my 4 years, instead of being in like Kingston, Ontario, I was I was based in London, and I would work in Paris and Milan.
But as unlikely a candidate as you might have been for modeling in your words, you also had this sort of power in it. Like you write about it in the book, you say, as a model, I could hide my dyslexia and be viewed as the smart person my parents always thought I was.
Yeah.
Tell me how that works.
Well, it's really, like I say, like your only work supply is your portfolio with photos of yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's like, as a dyslexic, your work material is a picture book, and you don't. Yeah, I mean, it was hard to navigate these European cities. That was really hard. But besides that, like, yeah, no one would know I was dyslexic. And at the time, I'm so open about it now. Yeah, at the time, I still wasn't fully comfortable. And I certainly wasn't comfortable in school. I hated being different for being dyslexic. So it's taken me a long time to be, I mean, I'm proud of it now. And that's a question. I work with a nonprofit in America called Eye to Eye, and I talk to kids that are dyslexic, and they're always like, how are you not ashamed? And it breaks my heart to hear them say that. It makes me really emotional because I feel so bad for them, but I'm like, I'm not, and I try to instill them confidence to not be, there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I'm not successful or whatever. I'm not here today. To me, this is success to be talking to you on CBC. Despite it, dyslexia, because I'm dyslexic.
Just to make sure I heard you, it's not despite your dyslexia,
not despite.
It's because
Sorry.
of it that you're here. Yeah, I just want to make sure we have that.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything that I love and cherish in my life is from my love of the Grateful Dead to being able to tell jokes around the world now to my relationships and friendships. And it's all because I'm dyslexic.
I want to talk a bit more about your finding your way to stand-up comedy.
Okay.
Because as we heard, you're very funny on the playground. You're making the other kids laugh. You're turning the music down at parties so you can tell jokes, all of this. But you were at a difficult point in your life at the moment that you decided to pursue that more seriously. So as much as you're comfortable, what was going on at the time that you really discovered that stand-up was something you could do?
Well, I was winding down. My whole thing was my dad was in the insurance business and not thrilled about it for 30 years. He didn't love his job, and he drove from Oshawa to Toronto. And so my thing was like, I want to have a job that I like. That was like from something I had when I was a kid. And then when I started modeling, I'd meet people and I was so embarrassed. Like I was embarrassed about being a model, and I was just like, I was embarrassed about it.
Why?
And because it felt the people that I idolized, Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir. I was like, they're not people that would do. It just didn't seem cool to me.
Okay.
And in retrospect, I'm like, I was getting paid I couldn't fill out a job application, yet I had this job. Like I should have just been quite content to be doing what I was doing. But what I was trying to find what I was passionate about. And I would meet photographers and stylists and people who were, putting the magazines together and stuff like that. And they were like, I got a photographer would be like, I got a camera when I was 6 and it's been my passion my whole life. And I was like, whoa, what was mine? And I didn't, joking around didn't seem like a thing. Like I didn't know, that was just who I was. I didn't think of anything about it. And then I did a commercial for Chevrolet in London, and it was like a big commercial, like a big campaign thing. And Sylvester Stallone did the voiceover, and I did it, and I had to improvise in it. And in the audition, I had to improvise, and it got like a laugh. It got like a pop from the people who were doing the audition. So after that, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try improv. So I did some improv. And then someone in improv was like, you should try stand-up. And again, I was never really like a huge stand-up fan. So I was like, I'll try it. And then I did it. And like the second I finished, I remember it was in Vancouver and I was walking off stage. My sister was in the back. And I knew, like, I remember it popped in my head. It sounds so kind of like corny now, but I remember like, I now believe in love at first sight because I knew this is what I wanted to do forever. And and then I just went crazy with it and just did it as much as I possibly could with the goal of moving to New York City. That was my goal from day one.
The way that you write about it in the book, it reads like stand-up saved you in a certain sort of way at that moment.
Yeah, I was in a really dark place. I had developed, and it happens sometimes with mental illness, is that I always kind of had OCD when I was a kid and stuff, and then it just hit me really hard at a certain point. And I didn't know what it was, and I was going to doctors, and they were giving me like, medication like Wellbutrin and all the like, and it didn't agree with me, and it was really making everything worse. So, and that's when I started stand up. Like I remember coming off these, what are they, like Paxil and Prozac and all, and they're like giving you these crazy combos, and it wasn't agreeing with me. And I remember like walking to my first open mics and like legitimately not being able to feel my legs. Like I could feel my feet on the cement, and then it was like nothing. And then, and I just would kind of sleep all day and then just get up and do a set. I would just try to do stand-up.
But you were driven to do it.
Yeah, I was driven to do it. And I say this to people who have dyslexic kids, and I say this to dyslexic kids and teenagers and stuff. When you have dyslexia, you're like a coiled spring because we're not designed for school. We're designed for school like the way a penguin is designed to drive a race car. Like, it just doesn't work. It's not for us, period. You can put us in special ed. You can do all these things, audiobooks, blah, blah, blah. It's not for us. But it builds up an energy in you. And so when I found something, stand-up was the first thing ever that the more I put into it, the better I got. If I worked on it in the afternoon, my set was a little better. If I rehearsed my bits, if I cut out words, everything was... So I searched for it my whole life, and I found it with stand-up. So then I was like, okay, this is it. And with some dyslexics can be good at sports and stuff like that. That wasn't me. I was never great at sports. Anything you could mark, scoreboard, report card, anything you can mark. Mm-hmm. You can't mark, making people laugh when they're drunk and high in a basement in Oshawa. There's no ranking for that, So I didn't know I was doing anything. And then as soon as I started stand-up, I really, had that. I was like, I had so much energy to apply to something that every day I found myself getting better at.
Can you give me some insight into the mechanics of writing down or memorizing your jokes? Like,
yeah.
What does the page look like when you're writing a set? Everyone
has like a different approach. I'm told my page looks like a ransom note of some sort where people are trying. That's what my friend says. But I just have this thing. For some reason, I do everything. There's some comedians that don't write stuff down. They just memorize it and just go up. That would make sense for someone who can't really write things down like myself. But I tend to do things the hardest way for me to do. So I have this crazy combination of writing them down, and then I have like another version of the joke typed out in like a Word document, and then you kind of naturally put it together the way a musician would put a set list together.
Yeah.
And and then I go over my jokes and memorize them, mesmerize them. So I keep the jokes as tight as possible, and then that allows me to have the rest of the show really loose. I try to do in my head. I try to conceptualize what the Grateful Dead would do. Was a song would be a jumping off point, and then they could go anywhere. And I try to do that. I improvise a lot in my set. I start with a joke, and then I try to take it somewhere else, and I try to, I'll riff with the crowd, and then come back into a bit. That's the perfect world. What I'm attempting to do.
I've noticed that the spring off point jokes are on the shorter side. Is that also a function of how your mind works?
Yeah, I got real. I try to keep everything as concise as possible.
Yeah.
So I always did setup and punchline jokes. And then now I try to force myself, just because it's a real challenge, I'll try to have in every new hour, I'll try to have at least a story, because it's a real challenge for me, because that's not where I naturally go comedically wise. I go very short setup punchline jokes, but I'm expanding them a little bit.
You're so great at crowd work.
Oh, thank you.
That's a real thing. And I know you've reached some major milestones at this point. You regularly showcase at the Comedy Cellar in New York, which is like considered the Harvard of comedy clubs.
Yeah.
You've performed on The Tonight Show. You sell out tours. So much of your success comes from your incredible crowd work. What do you attribute that ability to think so quickly on your feet?
I think it's growing up and doing it since I was a kid in Oshawa. I think it's, trying to make my friends laugh. Because it's the same. The thing is, you start stand-up and you just want to be yourself, and it takes so long to be yourself because you kind of hide behind your material, and it's not, you're not at your funniest. So I'm like, the more I do stand-up, the longer I do it, the more I'm 15-year-old me on Carnaby Crescent in Oshawa. So, yeah, that's me. That's my sense of humor. That's what I am like. I talk about my best friend Pugs in the book. After this interview, I'll be in his living room, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Distracting him while he's trying to work from home. And so when I'm riffing with the crowd, that's my natural place for comedy, and that's where it's always been since I was a kid.
One of the touching things in the book is the way you write about the women in your life who played different roles in getting you to where you are today.
It's going to make me emotional.
It's going to make me cry looking at you as I say this question, but we're going to just do it anyway, Phil, okay?
Yeah.
So, a surprising number of them also are famous women, which is hilarious. You've got Canadian supermodel and Oshawa native Shalom Harlow, who helped get you into modeling. Whole bassist Melissa Oftermar sent you to this meditation retreat.
Yeah.
She believed in you. Amy Schumer, as we talked about, invited you to her home when you had to leave your own home. But there's one woman who has been championing you from the very start.
Do this.
I'm sorry, got to ask you about your beautiful mom.
Yeah.
Would you say her name, first of all?
Joan Hanley.
Okay.
Yeah. Joan Hanley. Yeah.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about your mom.
Sorry, it's so weird. Like, before the book, I could talk about my mom without getting emotional, but after writing it, I relived all those things. And it's really rough when you're a kid and you have a problem and no one understands. It's tough, and my mom understood. And excuse me.
Yeah, take your time.
She would they would like, my third grade teacher made it very clear she thought I was dumb. And my mom would peacefully go in there and she would say he's dumb, not smart, not a smart kid. And he should, we have to hold him back. And my mom is such a passive person and the best person. And she'd go in and just, advocate for me.
Yeah.
And say, you can't do that. That's not going to help. He has a problem. We're figuring it out. He's actually very smart. And I would just talk him into letting me pass. And then have the same conversation the next year. It's rough.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah.
It was just endless. It was every year. Every day. But then she'd have to face it every year. Probably twice a year. There was probably a part at the beginning of the year where they would say we should just put him back now. Which, can you imagine the humiliation? You're like grade 3 and then you're like, oh no, I am back here. Grade 2, to the other teacher that hated me, who thought I was dumb.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a gauntlet. And she just showed up.
Yeah. Time and time again. Because she believed in you. Yeah.
And then also I don't know how she did it, but instilled the confidence in me. So that's why I dedicate my book to her, because I'm like, and excuse me, she's a big reader, so I dedicated my book because I was like, the statistics of dyslexic kids that are incarcerated, I talk about it in the book, but it's wild how, and you get it because it's so hard. And school is, when you're a kid, it's your whole life. It's like if someone now, an adult, it's like if you were made to feel dumb and pointless and useless every day, all day at work, for over a decade. So, if you don't have that support at home, you shoplift, or you get in a fight, or you know. And I kind of had the perfect combination because I had my mom, who was always there and always defended me. And then I had my dad, who had a much more aggressive attitude towards it. It was like, my dad was always like, oh, you're smarter than them and they don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Threw some swear words in there. Yeah, so I kind of had the combination. So, yeah. So I'm third grade, completely illiterate. And my dad's telling me I'm smarter than the teacher or whatever. And my mom is just peacefully every day. And now as an adult, and I don't have children myself, but I mean, my mom worked too, and then sat at the kitchen table with me for 3 hours, 4 hours every night. And I wasn't cooperative. I was throwing books, and because it was just brutal, and she would pick up the book and, come on, dear, let's just try to do this, So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being that selfless. And it's dedicated her life to helping me.
Yeah. Given everything that we've been talking about and everything that you had to overcome, I'm now holding your book that you wrote in my hands. You've persevered through so much. What do you think your younger self would have thought of the fact that you wrote a book?
I don't know. I mean, my parents, made me feel that I was going to be successful, which at some point, my dad would always be like, I'm not wearing a chauffeur's hat, because he was saying he was going to be my chauffeur. I mean, there's no way that I would have believed that I would write a book. I mean, it took me 8 years. I worked on it every day. But that's the only reason that I had, like, if you are dyslexic, you just, everything's hard. You know what I mean? Like getting here for me on time, which I did do.
Yeah.
Was hard. And, it affects your organization, it affects all this stuff. And, but, so it's not a deterrent. Difficulty it's not a deterrent. And, I read a book when I was approached, my manager approached me with the idea to write a book about being dyslexic, and it seemed like preposterous. And I got my way through a book another person had written about being dyslexic, and it blew my mind, because my whole life, it's an individual thing. You're the only one in the class. You could be the only one in your family. Definitely the only one in your friend group that suffers from this. So it just feels like you. And then when I read the book, I couldn't believe other people experience that. So I really wanted to do it, because I wanted other people to know that, we go through this together, and we all have the same experiences. And it's been so gratifying for me that after shows, people will have read the book and be like, I couldn't believe it, but the same things happened to me. And parents are like, tell me that they understand their dyslexic kid more, So that was my goal. And also I wanted to thank my mom.
Wow. I absolutely loved reading it. It's also
thank you.
hilarious. Like, it really made me laugh, and it also made me cry, and it's an honor to talk to you about it, Phil. Thank you so much.
I can't. I love Q. It means the world to me that I'm here. I'm sorry. I get so emotional. If we talk about something else someday, I won't be emotional, I promise.
Well, we welcome it. I appreciate you being so honest and open and real, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.